saw this video, and education has become a really important thing to me in the past couple of years. So let's watch it.
So you want to become smart. In most of the world, you're told that it takes 12 years of school, plus 4 years of college, plus 6 years of graduate school to become smart. But what you actually become is homeless. That's not even a joke.
Yeah, I feel like this might be a anti-education video, but like intelligence is an interesting thing because we think about it as this thing that can't be trained. But I think of intelligence as the level of complexity of which you can view something from. So when you see a problem, thinking that you know the answer to it, even though there is no clear answer to it, to me is a pretty good sign that you aren't very intelligent, because you think, oh, it's so simple if people would just do X thing, but you're not considering that people won't do X thing. So your answer to that problem isn't actually an answer. You don't have a solve. You don't have a solution because the answer that you've provided doesn't work. Maybe if it was implemented and used 100% of the time, it would work, but that's not what people do. We often talk about in diet, we talk about the idea of what the most optimal thing is. You should eat only whole foods. You should have mostly vegetables, get lots of protein in, and, eat nothing with more than whatever ingredients, all that stuff. Diet soda is bad, all these things. But in medicine, we talk about increasing your quality of life and your overall markers for health. So we're not looking for someone to be perfect. We're looking for them to be better than what they are currently. But if you're somebody who only approaches that problem as do this really strict thing that 98% of people definitely won't stick to, then you're not someone who's looking at that problem complexly enough because you think you have it all figured out, but you definitely don't. And I know that that's confusing because it seems so obvious of, well, here's the obvious answer. Yeah, but if people won't do it, it's not an answer. And then you can go, well, that's their problem. No, it's not. It's everyone's problem. That's how problems work.
Joke. But on the bright side, when you make a Reddit post about how you can't get a job, you can do it in perfect English.
Yeah.
If you haven't guessed by the title,
And you can get lots and lots of karma.
becoming smart is actually very easy, even if you think your genetics make you dumb. If you compare yourself to every other animal, you're actually pretty overpowered. When people like you
Yeah.
and me say we want to get smarter, it means a bunch of things. We want to learn useful skills, ideally skills that make money. We want to be good at
Yeah.
solving problems, hopefully for money.
And I feel like this video is going to be a lot of me ranting about things that irritate some people, but it's the way that I think about this topic. So many people who don't have actual solves to their own problems want to go online and give themselves a way of feeling superior. And so they'll leave comments on videos where they just say the rudest shit about how people are just too lazy and XYZ and all this stuff. And I always think to myself that, like, whenever I see someone make a rude comment, that's a really good defining factor in my mind for, this person might not be very intelligent, but I definitely don't like them. That they're coming here and instead of having compassion for this group of people, they're deciding to be angry and bitter and hateful towards them. And they're making a decision in that moment of which way they're going to fall. And I don't even think it's a good versus evil thing. It's a rude versus compassionate thing. And both of those things can be on either side, but a lot of the times it's very interesting the way that rude people think they know everything. And the thing that I've learned the most over my life is that I don't know much of anything because there is so much to know about things. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a comment and thought to myself, the urge to dunk on this person because of how obvious the flaw in their logic is. And it's only by the grace of all of these good people that no one is dunking on them and showing them what's up. Me and my friends roast each other constantly, and my brain is always just looking for the plot holes. Most people's brains are always looking for the plot holes. You're not way smarter than everybody.
We want to get better grades and learn difficult subjects to make more money and also to flex on people. And
No, I mean, to make more money, perhaps. Making money is the middle thing. The on the far left, say you have the what, and then he has the why of being on the far right. But really, I think the why is further pushed out, and make money is like a pre-why, because most people have a whole bunch of things that they want to do in their lives, but life is a pay to win game, so you have to make a whole bunch of money first. I want to be able to do a bunch of cool shit. I would love to have a really nice music studio. I would love to make records with all of my talented friends. I would like to make more interesting content. I would like to travel. I would like to try to find people who are talented and give them opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have. And these are all things that cost a lot of money. And so you need to aggregate money together in order to get to those places. Now, I think a lot of the reason that people fail very early on in their lives is because they want to just get money for the sake of getting money. And what you learn very quickly is that if your only goal is to get money, money goes away really, really quickly. The only way to make money stick around is to know what to spend that money on. And the way that you make money stick around the best is to spend money on things that make money, or things that give you a lot of joy, so that you don't have to spend that money over and over and over again.
And lastly, we want to sound smart in conversation, just enough so people respect you, but not too much to the point where people think you're a nerd. The problem is, most advice on the internet is so vague and philosophical that even if it works, the
Yeah.
only people who could actually follow it are Oprah and Socrates.
Yeah, a lot of people are just saying nothing and acting like they're saying something. A lot of people are telling you all of these tips and all this little advice that actually doesn't do anything. You'll see that over and over again with people, their morning routines or their what my day looks like and all this stuff. And so many of those videos are just obvious nepotism in practice, because they wake up in their super nice apartment and they go down to their private gym and they work out for 3 hours, and then they come upstairs and they have a breakfast of ribeye steak and elk meat, and then they get in their Range Rover and they go to their business meetings for the day, where they never tell you what they're doing in those business meetings, but they go to their business meetings for the day, and then at noon they're done with those business meetings and they spend the rest of the day trying to find new streams of income, which is just them on a MacBook in some really nice location, not actually doing anything, not actually giving you any advice, just telling you, just showing off so that you keep subscribing to their channel.
And if you instead look for specific advice that you can actually try right now, this is what you get. Eat blueberries because they're brain food. Drink black coffee.
Okay, some specific advice right now. Actionable things that you can actually do to become more intelligent. These are going to piss you off for sure. Find a STEM field that you are interested in, and then learn everything that you need to succeed in that STEM field. If you want to be a software engineer, get on Khan Academy and start as low as you need to. They have classes all the way down to elementary school mathematics, and get yourself all the way up to calculus. And you're going to go, oh, that's stupid. I don't want to learn. Here's the thing that happens when you start learning really hard subjects. You unlock a whole bunch of secrets about life that nobody can teach you directly. You have to learn them by trying to do things that challenge you in ways that you've never been challenged before. I can't tell you how many people say, oh, school just makes you brain rotted. School just makes you numb. School isn't actually trying to teach you anything. Well, if you go there and you don't apply yourself and you just do what the bare minimum is and you never actually learn anything, then yeah, I agree with you 100%. You've got to put in some effort into it. You have to try hard. You have to educate yourself. You have to learn how these things work and why they're important. When you start getting into calculus problems where they're trying to get you to determine what the temperature in a given day is going to be based off of the information that you have already, and there's a formula that you don't understand what that formula is doing, but you know that if you plug all these numbers in that formula, it works. What you need to figure out is what that formula does, because what it's teaching you is really complex problem-solving skills. And now that sounds confusing. Let me break it down more for you. The reason that you learn mathematics before you become a software engineer is because mathematics are not used directly in calculating for software engineering. You are making calculations yourself. You are making equations anytime you write the solve to a problem. And those equations have to come out of your brain. And so you need to know what equations and how the factors in equations work together, and what those things do to create the solution for your problems. And that is everything in life. There is a set number of hours in your day. There is a set amount of focus and effort that you can put into things. There are returns on investment from every single thing that you undertake. There are different kinds of returns, basically money or a fulfillment or friendships or just lots of different things. And you need to figure out the equations that you put together to give yourself happiness in life. And for everyone, that's going to be different. So you cannot get a ready-made equation from somebody else. You have to figure out what makes you happy. I need some time to play video games in my life. Not everyone needs that. So if I go and ask some finance guru what to do with my life, one of the first things they'll probably tell me is cut the video games out of your life. But if I cut the video games out of my life, I won't be happy anymore. And if I'm not happy anymore, I'm not going to be able to do what I need to be successful in this world. I'm not going to be able to show up every single day and put in a whole bunch of effort into something that makes me miserable because I'm cutting out parts of my life that make me happy. So get into a STEM field and start learning things that are really, really difficult and learn how to solve problems. Even if you don't want to do anything with that STEM degree, whatever it is that you actually want to do, if you find that you are not capable of doing that thing yet, if you find that when you write songs, your songs aren't good enough, if you find that when you make videos, your videos aren't good enough, if you find that you're just not capable of doing these hard, writing a book, doing whatever it is, I guarantee you that if you challenge yourself to think about things in a brand new way that isn't natural to you and takes a lot of effort to learn, you will put the equation together in your brain for how to be successful in whatever that thing is that you want to do. And it's not just about getting out there and selling window washing. It's about bettering yourself every single day. And the second that you write that off and you think that you don't have to try, you have lost a battle to the people who want to keep you enslaved so that you continue to do the grunt work to make their dreams happen and your dream melts away. That's what the world is. It's brutal and bitter, and you have to learn to stomach it if you want something out of it. Now, you don't have to want that something. You can take the way out that you want to take, and you can do whatever you want to do. That's what's beautiful about life. But just to be honest with you, it is not hard in a fun way. It is just hard, and that's the truth.
Exercise, sleep more, take IQ tests, listen to classical music. These things sound good, but at some point you have to, actually learn stuff.
Yes.
Besides, even in the past, there have been some geniuses who have spent the whole day sitting at a desk, getting 2 to 4 hours of sleep a day. So what can you actually do to get smarter that's not just the same 6 brain hacks from a Facebook post copied and pasted from a WikiHow article inspired by a quote spray painted on a New York subway wall? The main thing you need to do is read. What kind of reading? It depends. Fiction is good for learning to read faster, and it gives you...
Fiction is also, I've always thought of fiction as being a masterclass in empathy. It's the ability to put yourself into other people's shoes. I read a lot of fiction when I was younger. And I think that that's one of the reasons that when I see people, I think about them as if they are a character in a story. Because a light bulb went off in my head one time where I said, oh, this character isn't the main character because they're the main character. They're the main character because it's their story that we've tuned into. And everybody in the world has a story that's going on. So when you write somebody off as just being that person in this moment of time, you're really missing out on the fact that that person has a whole history behind them of all of these years of events that have happened to them down the line. And the more you're curious about that thing, the more empathetic you can be to your fellow human beings. And empathy will get you so far, especially in the cult of likability. If I walk up to you in a store and you're standing there arranging a shelf, and I look over and I see that there's tomatoes on the floor, and I say, "Oh man, Butterfingers kind of day, huh?" And then you look at me and you say, "Oh no, this customer came through and they spilled these tomatoes and now I have to clean them up." And then I can say, "Well, why didn't they offer to clean them up for you?" "Well, they did," but and then you have this whole conversation. But if you can't think of what the reason could be to even get that conversation started, then you can't have a moment with somebody, and having a moment with somebody is what makes you feel good, is what gives you payoffs in these interesting ways that you can't even imagine, such as, maybe that person remembers you, and then they, next time you come into the store, they help you find something and you further a friendship, and you just never know where things are going to take you. And I think that's what fiction books are really good for.
Gives you better vocabulary. Also, if you read a lot of dialogue, it makes you feel like you have friends. But most people...
And if you read a lot of dialogue, you can sort of understand how to speak to people. A lot of people have a hard time speaking, and I think that consuming lots and lots of dialogue can help you understand that it's not as intimidating as you think it is.
Go straight for nonfiction, which indeed is the key to being able to casually drop interesting knowledge in conversations. For example, just by reading this book, you can come off to anyone in conversation as someone who knows history. The key is to not be obnoxious about it.
Yeah, nonfiction can be really good, but you have to be careful about what kind of nonfiction that you read, because there's a lot of BS self-help books out there. And really, if you've read one self-help book, you've read every single self-help book. I oftentimes think of self-help books as this sort of gap filler between you having the confidence to actually go out there and learn things and get better at doing what you need to do in life, and not having that confidence. And usually you'll start to notice a pattern in these self-help books in the way that they work, that they're sort of spread out over this long period of time, and they basically say the same thing over and over and over again, which is just that it's okay to make mistakes, and that you are actually a badass who can do anything that you want to. You just have to choose what that thing is and then stick with it for a long period of time. And once you embody that, you can move on to reading nonfiction books that are really specific about things that you're interested in. And the reason that you read nonfiction books is just to get an idea of what has happened over the course of time, what ideas other people have already had, and how you can sort of bring those into your life to make you a more diversified person. Because at the end of the day, if you have a person who's really actualized, it doesn't actually matter what problem you put in front of them, whether it's fixing a toilet or cooking a meal. They're going to be able to do that thing because they know how to solve problems. They know that things don't get done unless they do it a specific way, and that if you don't have enough of an attention to detail, then you can't succeed.
About it. Crazy how we evolved from chimpanzees, right? Well, actually, evolution is non-linear, and several human-like species inhabited Earth simultaneously, none of which could even be remotely considered as chimpanzees.
Yeah, we just share a lot of DNA with chimpanzees.
Well, this is considered polite by the standards of a YouTube comment section. In real life, saying "well, actually" before proving someone wrong will make you instantly unlikable.
Yeah.
Change the "well" to an "easy," and now we're talking. Let's redo that conversation. Crazy how we evolved from chimpanzees, right? It is crazy, right? You know, I was reading the other day, and apparently humans and chimpanzees... I always thought we evolved from them, but I guess we just evolved side by side. You can be smart while also being humble, and also sounding like you touch grass.
Yeah, and this is something that I noticed so much, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, about how people are just coming off so rude, and I don't think they have any idea that they're doing it, because if you're even remotely turned on as a person, I can't understand why you would want to be someone that goes and lays down in bed at night and then has to think about how rude you were to a bunch of strangers. But especially on comment sections on the internet, people just phrase everything as if you're a bad person for having any other thought about this thing whatsoever. But the truth is that most conflicting opinions are both just opinions. There aren't a lot of actual facts about things, especially things that are going on right now in the world. You can take any difficult topic like the Palestine and Israel thing, and there are totally factors on both sides that could convince you either way that one person is right or one person is wrong. And that's because honestly, there are bad actors in everything, and usually both sides have some nuggets of truth and also some desire to do harm to other people. And so nobody is just no group of people is just good or bad. No problem is just good or bad. It is just complexity. And you've probably, if you're somebody who thinks, oh, you're a bad person for thinking this thing, I'm going to argue with you and set you right, you've probably just been indoctrinated to a side and you're not considering the whole scope of what's going on. And if you do consider that whole scope, you'll just see that it's really complicated and you can't actually have an opinion that falls that way. And I know that sounds super final, and it sounds like I'm trying to tell you that you're just wrong, but if you're being mean to other human beings, I do kind of think that you are probably wrong a lot of times. If you are unprovokedly just attacking somebody else and trying to make them feel bad, then I kind of think you're wrong. I don't even kind of think it, I do think it.
The key is to teach people what you know without making them sound dumb. This way, people will actually learn from you, which will make them see you as smart and respectable. Now, how do you find these books? It's actually really easy. You don't have to read the same 5 books everyone tells you to read. Just think of a topic you want to learn about, like cleaning. Now Google books about cleaning. Here's one that looks good. Usually, these books cost money, but if your finger slips,
Go to the
you
library.
might accidentally end up on this website.
Not even Library of Genesis. You can just go get a library card, and then you can go get the Libby app, and you can put your library card into the Libby app, and then you can check out tons and tons of books online for free on your phone, and you can read them all there for free. Buying books is a scam, especially if you don't have the money to buy books and you're just seeing if you like a book, you're not even wanting to have it forever. So definitely the Libby app is a great way to do it. Also, just use your local library. It's incredible the resources that are there. One of the greatest things I ever discovered was the library and the access to knowledge and all the different things that you can find. I mean, they have video games, they have music, they have movies, they have books, just lots and lots of free resources. My library, and I live in a not very good town, but my library has recording studios and a light forge and a 3D printer and lots of things that you can use. So go use your local library. If you're somebody who doesn't have access to a lot of resources, that's a great place to go. Go and get used to it and just look around and search around, talk to the people who work there. They're happy to help.
And you might accidentally search for the title of the book, and by chance click on the first link, and oh no, accidentally downloaded a file, and opened it with the appropriate ebook viewer. Well, now that you have the book, you'll also find that not only can you pick out interesting tidbits to use in conversations, but you can also learn many useful skills.
Yeah.
There are 10 things you should know before you learn a skill. 1. Unless you practice the skill, your brain will think it's useless and forget it. 2. You only have to know 20% of the knowledge.
And this is something that I sort of think about when I'm talking about the idea of understanding how things work. That's one of the things that makes you very intelligent in this world is understanding how something works. Understanding how we can go back to the fact that he showed there for a second, which is that your body temperature drops when you're sleeping. Just knowing that these things happen can help you solve problems that come up later. Someone says, oh, I'm always hot before I go to sleep, and then I always wake up cold throughout the night. And then you can go, well, your body temperature drops when you're sleeping, so maybe keep a blanket by you that you don't have one at the time, so that as you get cold, you can put that blanket over top of you and solve that problem. Or just having this idea of how the physical world interacts around you is a really, really good foundation for getting a solid root in reality. Because a lot of people have issues to where they never get those foundations, and then you see these insane ideas that people have that can be solved with 6th grade facts. The idea that the earth is flat, and people, whenever I mention this one, they always roll their eyes that I feel the need to talk about it. But a lot of people believe that the earth is flat. But you can take a stick, you can put it in the ground, you can measure the shadow of it, You can then use a formula in trigonometry to draw a triangle to see how tall that stick is by the length of the shadow, and that formula only works on a spherical plane. It does not work on a flat plane. There is no way to get that formula to work on a flat plane. So if you can do that on the ground, then it must be a spherical plane that you're operating on, because that's the only place that formula works. And knowing these little things can keep you rooted in the real world, so you don't get brought into some scam of pseudo intelligence that a lot of people are trying to throw on you out there, because they have these agendas to get more followings and bring about a cult of their own personality.
To master 80% of the skill. So I guess we could just move on. This is called the learning curve. It's a graph of how good you get at a skill over time. As you can see, just by practicing a little bit, you can make a lot of progress in the beginning. But you have to practice. No one ever learned how to tie a tie by watching how to tie a tie.
No.
You only learn how to tie a tie by watching how to tie a tie while tying a tie. The same applies to reading.
You can listen to music all that you want, but until you actually pick up your guitar and practice daily, you're not going to get any better at it. And you can have all these thoughts and ideologies about what makes music good and all of that, but I guarantee you that the more you practice music, the more you realize that every musician is great who is out there. You realize that Justin Bieber is an amazing singer. You realize that John Mayer is an amazing guitarist, because you have respect for the thing, because you know how hard it is to do it. You know how hard it is to tie a tie. So when you see people with really well tied ties, you respect it.
Books only make you smart if you give your brain a reason to remember the stuff in the book. So once you read the chapter
Self-righteousness is the effect of an undereducated person.
on cleaning a bedroom, go ahead and clean a bedroom. Doesn't even have to be your bedroom. Just clean one, and now you'll never forget it. But let's just imagine that's something that you can't practice right now. Like, imagine you're reading a book about cars, and then you see this diagram of how to jumpstart a dead car with a good car. Ideally, you'll read about it, and then go practice it. But not everyone has 2 cars lying around to practice on. But you can still practice it by
In your
just
mind.
imagining. Imagine the moment where you'll need to know how to jumpstart a car.
Mind palaces are a real thing. I know that Sherlock did them to death, but it is very true. Passive learning is definitely a real thing. You can imagine how to do something. And in fact, a lot of things in my life I have learned by imagining how it would feel to do that. Playing 3D Mario games is a really odd example, but it's true. Playing 3D Mario games and watching people do quick backflips and like really special long jumps and stuff. I learned all that stuff by just imagining how it would feel to put that controller in my hand and do those things.
Put yourself in the situation. Find a video and pretend that's your car. By imagining the whole process from start to finish, you just convinced your brain that you used all that information. And now you're
Yeah, I saw a podcast, or I listened to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how you can actually form memories in your brain just through the process of trying to remember something that didn't happen. And you can make your brain put together enough thoughts of other things that have happened that are similar to that you can eventually convince yourself that something happened. And you can do the same thing with other skills. You can imagine it enough that you can put it together in your head if you have an actual working depiction of how it is physically. Another reason for why it's so important to know how things actually work in the real world.
you'll remember it. Meanwhile, the person who just looked at the diagram and tried to memorize it still won't know what to do if they ever had to jumpstart a car. This is how you get smart. Use everything you learn, and if you can't, imagine yourself in the moment where it'll be useful. This is basically how the entire school system works. You learn a piece of information, and because it'll be like 15 years before you actually use it, your teacher creates an imaginary situation where that information is useful. That is, a test. An exam that has questions on that exact piece of information, and if you get it wrong, you fail. Or in South Korea, you get prisoned.
I see a lot of people complaining about the idea of learning that, the parts of the cell or whatever. But something that I think is really interesting about life is that everything basically boils down to the exact same pathways. And that if you learn how cells work and how cells reproduce, you sort of get this idea for how everything works and everything reproduces. And you reinforce that it all has this sort of simplicity to it by learning that everything sort of coincides in a certain way, that cues work not only in software but also in traffic patterns and in the DMV and in our brains and in our bloodstream, and that this works all the way down. So you get this foundational element of that's how these things happen. That's how we solve these kinds of problems. So then when you see a problem that can be solved with a cue, you go, okay, that's a cue problem. We do that now.
Time.
Your if you are a young person and you think that you don't need school, realize that you are missing out on 12 years of the ability to educate yourself in one of the most complicated things that there is, which is life. And that nobody will take the time to educate you on that after you get out of school. And now I know that schools aren't a good system in a lot of ways. I know that a lot of people don't have access to a lot of things, but for those 8 hours that you are in class, if you apply yourself and do the work that you need to do, you will come out on the other side better for it. Now, you don't have to stick to this pathway of trying to become a doctor. You can have outlandish ideas about things. You can be a rebel, and you can do all of these things that you want to do. But being more intelligent, understanding how the world works, having a foundational understanding of the theories at least, will give you a huge leg up in the future, because you might not pay attention in class, but somebody else is, and somebody else will be just as much of a rebel and want to be a rock star just as bad as you, but they've been paying a lot more attention than you have. And now you're in direct competition with them, and you didn't pay attention and they did, and you missed an opportunity that they took advantage of.
Kidding, that's only if you cheat. This is usually enough to make your brain at least attempt to remember the information. The only problem is, once the test is over...
And learning to study something is a difficult pathway that you have to form in your brain that a lot of people never form. And that's something that you get by practicing at it. I can make such an argument for the process of education, especially as someone who didn't pay a lot of attention in school until they became an older person and decided they want to go back to college, and then had to learn a whole bunch of stuff that they had missed out on. I was the guy who went back and had to learn algebra from the beginning, and then had to go to algebra 2, and then had to go to trigonometry and geometry and pre-calculus and calculus. I was that guy. And it took a lot of time and effort, and it took me sitting at desks with notebooks of paper and writing things down and using a calculator and watching lessons over and over and over again until the thing went into my brain. And I still am so far behind a lot of my peers who are a lot more intelligent and a lot more well put together than I am. I'm 29 years old, and if you are not 29 yet, or you're older than 29, let me just tell you that if you're someone who wants to do big things in your life, it's going to be hard work, and the sooner you start the process of doing things that are difficult for you, the better off you're going to be.
Your brain says it's not useful anymore, and you forget it. Some people think repetition, or spaced repetition, or studying in intervals, or mind mapping will help them get better grades and learn faster. But in reality, doing practice questions will give you the most results.
Yeah.
Because they simulate the actual situation in which you'll need to use what you learned.
And practice questions can be very frustrating because you'll simply get frustrated. You don't know how to solve the problem yet. You're going to be forced to sit there and try to figure it out, and you don't want to just look up the answer. You want to figure out how to get the answer. That's going to be very frustrating for you. When I was learning SQL, it took me an hour and a half to learn to do one question in SQL. But once I did that one question, I understood a select from where statement, then I got it. And everything else was much, much easier. But that first hour and a half was the hardest hour and a half to put in, because it stresses you in a way where you know there's an easy way out, but taking that easy way out doesn't give you anything.
If you don't have any practice questions, make your own and convince yourself that the stakes are high. Like, pretend that you're hanging off a cliff by one arm and someone's there to pull you up, but only if you can name all the parts of a human cell. Learning information and making it seem useful to your brain is all you need to get smart. And this is why textbooks are the S-tier format for becoming smart.
This is what I fucking tell people all the time. People want to be, oh, college is such a bad, bro, you get a textbook, you get a curriculum. Curriculums are good. Stick to the curriculum, forget about the teachers, forget about the other students, and learn the curriculum. Put in your time, put in your due diligence, and just get through these textbooks. Now, there are definitely other ways to do that, but having money sank into the problem, having a faculty that's trying to keep you on track, having other people around you who are doing the same thing, those are all benefits to this process. And that's why college can be such a good thing. You get what you put in, and that's never going to change. So if you're going to college and you're not getting a good education, ask yourself what you're putting into it. Ask yourself what choices you have made, because it's about you. I know that colleges have all of this ridiculous political shit going on, and it's frustrating to a lot of people, and I'm aware of that. You don't have to go to an in-person college. You don't have to take part in those things, but textbooks is so good for teaching you how to do things, because they have all the information that you need to solve every problem that's going to be inside of them, and then they have all these problems that you can work through. And if you just spend enough time with those textbooks, you will figure it out. And the more you figure out, the more you know and understand. And the more you know and understand, the better equipped you are to deal with things in your life. Trust me on this. The ability to be able to see the problems in front of you and know the most immediate solve to those problems will take you through your entire life. And I can tell you this because I didn't have those capabilities. My life was infinitely worse, and then I developed those capabilities, and now my life is significantly better.
As fast as possible. There's no fluff, no hand-holding, no distractions, just pure information and a bunch of practice questions. And if you can't solve them, you have to flip all the way to page XXXVVIII in the appendix to get help. Textbooks aren't for the casual learner, because it's not as fun as watching a YouTube video on the topic and forgetting
But watching a YouTube video doesn't really help that much. I know that some people can learn really effectively that way, but most of us tune out and our eyes glaze over and we miss giant parts, and then all of a sudden, that part of the video was just boring because that part of the topic was boring, and then you don't know something important that you should know.
All an hour later. But if you're ever up to the challenge, there is a website you
Shout
might
out Hank Green, though. Crash Course is amazing.
accidentally end up on, where you could accidentally download free textbooks on any subject you want.
Yeah.
But before you do that, I'm collecting donations in the form of subscribes to fund the next video.
And this is the thing. I don't mean to diminish any people out there who say you don't have to go to college. You can just learn all these things on your own. The internet has tons of free resources. Take advantage of those resources. Yes, 100% I agree with you. For sure, you are correct. But we come back to that problem once again, where are most people going to do that thing? The answer is probably no. Most people aren't going to be able to put together their own curriculum or stay dedicated long enough to do this or that or whatever. And the resources of an institution where they try to help you get through the process can be really beneficial to those people. So all I'm saying is that don't be scared away from the idea of a college setting if you're somebody who would benefit from a college setting. I have a really hard time staying dedicated to something over the course of 4 years, which is how long it would take me to get through the program that I'm working in currently. I would not still be studying and learning and doing all of these things if I didn't have someone messaging me every week and asking me what progress I've made and to prove my progress and all of those things. That is super beneficial for me. So you have to know who you are. You have to be able to set your own goals, and then you have to learn how to succeed as you. And once you learn how to succeed as you, you've solved the problem, and you can move on to doing whatever else it is that you want to do. And that's everything.